Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Jacobs, and for this assignment, my topic of choice was net neutrality. And for my article of choice, I chose one from PC Gamer titled What the Threat Against Net Neutrality Means for PC Gamers. Now, within the article, it goes into detail about how net neutrality is used to protect consumers and the dangers it poses once it's been removed. Now, starting off with, in 2015, the FCC basically regulated that all ISPs or anybody who provided internet service had to fairly provide internet services to all network services on the internet. In addition to that, what it does is allow consumers to get to all sites that are deemed legal within the internet, so there's no blocking or anything preventing them from getting to a site that's considered legal. In addition to that, there's no throttling allowed, which basically means that they're not allowed to give preference to any site that, let's say, they agree with or that pays them a certain fee in order to allow them to have faster service, and they're not allowed to, let's say, make a site slower because they either disagree or they're refusing to pay their services. And this in turn protects us, the consumers, from, let's say, having to buy like tiers for internet access and just being charged additional fees in order to access certain content. Not only that, for other companies such as Netflix, Hulu, Pure Streamflix, YouTube, basically it protects them from basically having a disadvantage, because what could end up happening is a service provider like Comcast could end up slowing down their streaming services, which in turn could make their streaming options a lot more viable, thus giving them an unfair advantage within the market. This in turn would also hurt the consumer, because in order to get the same amount of quality of service, actually there would be no way for them to get the same amount of quality of service unless these companies paid Comcast in order to give them the same equal amount of streaming access, so to speak. Also, for smaller businesses and companies, this could also put them at a very, pretty heavy disadvantage, simply because, if they're not able to pay for the services or basically, provide them that financial incentive, in turn their sites could be affected, thus hurting their business revenue as well as access to a consumer base. So this is very important. This is why many services such as, or many companies such as Google, Facebook, and other small businesses are much in favor of net neutrality because of all the benefits it brings. And by losing net neutrality, this opens up us, the consumers, to be impacted in our daily lives. And while it might not take effect immediately, this could lead to some major long-term consequences. Consequences such as having to possibly pay more in order to stream certain content, or basically be able to get a higher rate of internet access or speed. And especially, on this particular site, it caters towards gamers. Saying if you're very into gaming, or let's say if you're a content creator, and majority of what you do depends on your ability to be able to stream on certain devices as well as sites. This could in turn impact your own living situation, or at the very least your ability to make a wage, so to speak. Now, it is worth noting that although in 2015 net neutrality was instituted, you have to be aware that even before it was introduced, prior to that, there was really no problems. Like, the idea that, internet providers could, slow down your internet or possibly, infringe on other businesses' opportunities to make money. It was never a problem, even before net neutrality was, ever thought of. So, and there was not really many prior incidents that necessarily led to net neutrality needing to be in place. But what it did do, it provided that extra safeguard by the government to protect consumers. So, to a fair point, one could argue that net neutrality was never exactly necessary in the first place, nor was there anything prior to that made it an absolute necessity. But having it in place did act as a future safeguard against any other malpractices by businesses or possible monopolization of internet services. Also, it is important to note that the current chair of the FCC has pointed out that internet service providers will have to be transparent about any type of actions they enact that could affect the consumer in a negative way or cause extra services. So they will have to be transparent, but nonetheless, it does provide that window open for consumers to be taken advantage of simply because this option is now available. Now, there's not necessarily much to go off of as what will happen in the future, but it's understandable why many would be nervous about the fact that net neutrality is no longer an option and what this could hold for the future. Now, my own personal reason as to why I chose this specific article, especially this specific topic, is because I myself count myself as a gamer and I enjoy the medium of gaming. Issues like this are very important simply because this could affect the way that, prices are managed, streaming services are affected, as well as many other content creators who I do enjoy watching, and I might myself want to become a content creator one day too. The struggles that they'll possibly have to endure because of things like this. So for me, it's very important that this issue be very closely monitored as to prevent just any unfair practices. Because from my personal experiences looking at video games today, we've seen implementation of things like DLCs, digitally downloaded content, in which case we've seen developers intentionally leave out content within the game simply for them to offer it as an extra to be purchased. This wasn't an instantaneous thing, but through over the years, because of how popular gaming is, you've seen people not be as outraged about it because for them, it's just more of like a casual hobby. But for those who really pay attention to the video game industry, we see how some of these practices aren't very healthy, with many things that are related to the game being left out of the content just to charge consumers a lot more for it, even though they pay full price for the game, as well as any other, service-based video games where, you're paying subscription fees. They've now replaced this, but now they make you buy extra content within the game in order to make up for the prices. So there are unintended consequences when things are left unchecked or unchallenged. So for me, going forward in the future, this is definitely a topic that I will pay very close attention to, and I do believe that for the future of content providers as well as many other streaming services, that net neutrality as it is, be at the very least place some type of influence within our media. I understand that there are those who feel that the government should not play such an intensive role within our internet's usage, but for the sake of protecting consumers, there is some surveillance that does need to happen in terms of just making sure that service providers do not abuse their ability to make profits off their consumers due to the fact that there are no other options available. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and please have a good night.